For our media literacy project, we did the News and Observer, and our group is myself, Elena Hall, Brooklyn Holt, Tori Holt, and Minkyung Jin. So for website content, the News and Observer focuses on investigative reporting and watchdog journalism in the Triangle area, which is in Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Some of the main topics include local news, what happens in the Triangle, politics, sports, jobs, personal finance, and shopping. The site's information is very current. They happen to publish things within less than 24 hours, and it's publicly disclosed that they're owned by McClatchy, which is a private ownership under Chatham Asset Management and allows to continue to publish independent community-focused journalism by investigating in local newsrooms. The author, time and date has the most current update up top on the website of the article. The site is easy to navigate with headings to find topics, as well as a search bar. And the site does have an interesting feature where you scroll to the bottom and an endless amount of news articles appear on the page. So it becomes pretty flooded and makes it difficult to find some topics. And then I also use the All Slides Media Bias Rating to figure out how their bias was. It says that they're in the center, so they can have a mix between right or left agendas or no bias at all, but they do try to appeal to people's emotions.
The website overall is pretty functionable. The key factors that increase its functionality are the hamburger icon in the top left corner of the website and the search bar. The interesting thing about these factors are they aren't just on the homepage, so they're with you for the whole time you're on the website. The hamburger allows you to click on it and you can see sections and subsections that are within the website, as well as it narrows the search. And the search bar, it helps with direct searches and it can speed up the research process. The website has very few advertisements and banners, but they're not too distracting from the website content. They're easy to get rid of, so you can click the X mark in the top right corner. The site's pretty well organized and is pretty good quality. The only two functions that we found were pretty distracting were this right here, when on the homepage, the most like the biggest sections within the website were pretty close together and you can't really distinguish it, as well as what Elena mentioned earlier was when you scroll for a while, you get caught up with a bunch of different articles that can get confusing. And the stories on the News and Observer are all current, as she stated also.
Okay, for sponsoring organizations, the News and Observer increasingly relies on philanthropy. Roughly 10% of the NNO's newsroom is supported by philanthropic partnerships. There are roughly about 40 sponsoring organizations, and most of them are located in North Carolina, including the following on the slide, and so much more. The News and Observer is driven by a commitment to philanthropy and public interest journalism, with support from local and national donors. The NNO undertakes projects covering essential topics like unemployment, healthcare, climate change, and technology. These philanthropy-backed initiatives allow the NNO to maintain editorial independence while providing in-depth coverage. Additionally, collaborative efforts such as the NC Watchdog Reporting Network demonstrate a commitment to statewide investigative reporting. Overall, the NNO's interest lies in disseminating information to inform and engage the public on critical issues. The News and Observer, North Carolina's largest newspaper, boasts a significant reach with over 4.5 million monthly online visitors and 25.3 million page views in 2020, with a daily print circulation exceeding 68,000 and 85,000 on Sundays. The NNO's has 25,000 digital-only subscribers and 50,000 plus print and digital subscribers. Originating in 1865 as a Sentinel, it underwent ownership changes and transformations. Acquired by Samuel A. Ash in 1880, it merged with the Raleigh Observer and became Raleigh's sole daily paper. Josephus Daniels, owner since 1894, used it for democratic causes. It played a role in the controversial Wilmington's insurrection of 1898. Jonathan Daniels later shifted focus to school desegregation. In the late 20th century, the paper underwent editorial changes, emphasizing government watchdog roles. Despite challenges like 1980 fire merging in 1987, and adapting to the digital age, the NNO remained resilient.
When you click on the hamburger icon I mentioned earlier, you can see one of the sections entitled Opinions. Underneath it, they have editorials, op-eds, and many more opinion-based articles. They also have an editorial board that they mentioned briefly underneath all their editorials. The first story that I covered was NC Republicans won't let us vote on abortion. They know they'd lose. The article addresses citizen-led ballot initiatives, more specifically how NC does not allow them. The editorial did not include any interviews. Some that we thought would have been beneficial were public officials. They reached out to the House Speaker and Senate Leader, Phil Berger and Tim Moore, but they did not respond to the request. They also did not include any citizen interviews on either side of the political spectrum, which we feel would have been beneficial. The News and Observer as a whole does not identify with a singular political party. However, they do publish editorials and op-eds, such as this one, that can lean to either side. The reporter on this particular piece seems to be more left-leaning, and this example down below led us to this conclusion. And yeah.
Okay, so the second news story that we covered was Durham Sheriff holds first gun back of 2023. How many weapons were turned in? This was just a regular news story. The article announced that nearly 150 guns were turned in at 2 locations in the latest gun back held by Durham County Sheriff's Office. In terms of who was interviewed, Durham Sheriff Clarence Burkhead was interviewed. There was not any citizen interviews or individuals who turned in the guns to get that type of feedback. In terms of the stance of the reporter in the publication, it was non-affiliating. There was not a specific stance or discernible politics behind the story. It was more of an informative article, getting the information out about the gun back. The one piece of the article that showed passionate views and opinions was the interview from the sheriff, when he stated and voiced that the primary goal of this event was continuing effort of public safety, and we are glad to report since 2022 we have successfully removed close to 650 weapons off the streets of Durham. When doing some research on what the outside sources say about News and Observer, there was not a lot of feedback or opinions from them, but I did find 2 specific sources that talked about the credibility of the website. The first outside source was Reddit, and it was arguing that News and Observer sucks and needs a leadership change. Reddit is not a credible source because it does consist of opinions from the public, but the majority of the feedback on Reddit website was not in favor of News and Observer because people were not happy with the misleading information from the clickbait articles. And then the second outside source that was found was the Media Bias Fact Check website. I don't know how credible this source was, but it discussed some positive feedback about News and Observer. The source mentioned that News and Observer media sources have a slight moderate towards the liberal side. But aside from the bias, they said that the News and Observer overall is rated high for factual reporting due to proper sourcing and a clean fact check record.
Some key takeaways that we had as a group was one thing that surprised us the most and something that we did not like about the website. What surprised us the most was how long the News Observer had been around for a while and how big the paper truly was. Most of us grew up in Raleigh and had been aware of the News and Observer for a while, but looking at the history and background of the site was interesting to see how truly well known it is. One thing we didn't like about the News and Observer was the clickbait kind of stories they had. They publish so many stories on a daily basis that it's not surprising that they would be shorter and to the point, but it led to very short and unfulfilling stories. The site itself lived up to our expectations. It had good quality. However, the content was a bit underwhelming for us as a group.
And these are all of our sources from everything.